Alright guys, what's going on? We have got Mr. Havner as the horse. Mr. Havner is the BBZ horse who is on the final table here of the 1K 5 million guarantee blowout, which is a freaking major tournament. $1 million to first over here, guys. We got $1 million to first. And this is a new BBZ horse. It came from the low stakes, satellited into this. Literally, it's a moneymaker story. It's a dream story, and it's real. It's happening. So like, I'm gonna sweat it out, make a video out of it. We're gonna see what happens. This is a private stream. I'm gonna do this as a private stream for the BBZ community. So people who attend the seminars, which you can check out on BBZPoker.com. People who attend this are gonna be able to come in, ask questions, and we're kind of just gonna hang out. And I'm gonna talk through a lot of the action and talk about what's going on. But we are going to talk through this action. So we've got an open from the hijack, 7-5 deuce two-tone. This player even stacks, so ICM adjusted here. Probably gonna be doing a lot of checking. I'm definitely gonna be doing some amount of betting. As you can imagine, there will be for sure some betting. So I'm gonna end up replaying this hand. But anyways, so I think. Yeah, I don't remember enough. But the way that I would have played this hand is I would have used high frequency check on the flop with most of my range. Like at least a good chunk of my range with 2 even stacks here. I probably would have used high frequency bet on the turn if this player had checked twice, but I wouldn't have bet range, so most of my ace high hands would have checked back turn. And then I would have probably be betting river against turn check call. If this player had bet the turn, which I think is reasonable, with a fraction of his range, this player had bet the turn, obviously the river is going to be a mix. So wouldn't be using very large bet sizings, I don't think, on this river though. So, I mean, I guess this will make sense with at least like some kind of fraction of the range. So let's just replay that action. Just want to see what happened. So, min raise, which seems fine, I guess. So again, I would have used probably high frequency check. I like the larger bet size when you do deploy bet. I would have had a betting range for sure. Check, check, turn. And then 4.8 on the river. I'm not a big fan of the sizing twice. I'd probably bet half in this situation. Yeah, so here we go. First ladder opportunity for Mr. Havner. And that's pretty good for the ladder. Pretty good for the ladder. Or it's the second ladder. Yeah, well, I think we started today 8-handed, right? So I think it's the first ladder of the day. So that's good for 117,000, which is pretty sick. Is Havner part of the BBZ stable? Yeah, Havner is a part of the BBZ stable. That's correct, John. Havner is a part of the low stakes. So the new organization we've got. He transitioned out of CFP to us staking him, and he's a part of the Academy. So the lowest stakes group that we've got just got started with us. He actually satellited into this, and yeah. So I mean, like, pretty fucking sick. I mean, this is like a moneymaker story. Satellite into the biggest 1K, one of the biggest 1Ks. It's January of 2021, but this is one of the biggest 1Ks of the year. Like, there's no doubt it's a $5 million 1K. So this is this is a fucking massive tournament, huge spot, and like you satellite in. You're probably only playing the satellites into this because he's in the Academy, and then he final tables it. Just so sick, so sick. I've never final tabled an event like this. Played tons of these, so it's like it's a super like moneymaker Cinderella type story. It's fucking amazing. All right, so our hero defends the big blind here against the button min raise, which is obviously standing with range. I'm not a huge fan of this bet size. Like, I don't think it's bad, and I think that like high frequency bets are probably good, but I do like larger bets a lot. So like I tend to go a little bit bigger oftentimes because this board just is so dynamic. First of all, it's good for the opener. Lots of ace king and stuff and overpairs aces. Get through it pre-flop, but there's lots of like gut shots and like middling equity here for the imposition player. So I do like at least sometimes to deploy like larger bet sizes to try to pressure some of the medium parts of this range. That's not to say that I won't ever bet small. I think you need to bet small sometimes, but I do think that I bet medium-ish a lot, or even a little bit bigger than medium sometimes. Turn check back is going to be like at least marginally capped. Obviously the 9 pairing uncaps the range again. So what was going to be a capped range when Havner got to the river has now uncapped because the 9 paired, and so that's going to put a lid on how big Havner can bet. And so this bet size is reasonable. It's a good way to bet like King X. It's also a good way to bet 9X. We should actually see some raising here. I think the raising sizing here should be small. We did some work on this recently, like this morning, obviously. So for people that attend my seminars, and yeah, so bet sizing here should, if when this range 2-bets, it should be small. I do think that this is the type of situation where I would be 2-betting fairly often. You do expect King X to be a part of this river betting range. Clearly we have lots of air here. Clearly we have lots of 9X here. So if you're never 2-betting here and you're just playing call fold, I think that sucks. Like if you're obviously going to raise with a 9, but like if you're just playing, if you're not bluffing here, I think that's a mistake. This range is still weak enough. Got lots of 10-8, 8-6, Jack, Jack 8. And my man picks up the pot. Let's go, Ike. Come on, baby. Would I be value betting? Would I be 2-betting just King 8 plus for value in position? I wouldn't be 2-betting King 8 on the river. I would be 2-betting 9X for sure. And like ICM adjusted here on a final table, it might be polarized to 9X. I think that if there was no ICM, you should probably be 2-betting like King Queen or something, or King Jack. But you're not going to have that. You're not going to have that much of that, right? So like I think most of your 2-betting range is just going to be like 9X. But again, your opponent has 9X, so that's why I think the sizing probably doesn't get too large, because your opponent has a large coverage of like what you're 2-betting. Okay, so Havner getting involved with the button flat. This is so insane that he's playing for $1 million right now. Like he's like he must be just going fucking nuts, like emotionally. Like he just must be like just freaking out. So this player is supposed to use high frequency check here. I think when this player does bet, this range is going to be very strong. So I'm going to be playing high frequency fold as Havner. Sandwiched. Big Blind's obviously got a threatening range. Big Blind has 8-6. So Big Blind has 7-5, 9-5 suited probably, something like that. So I think this range is very threatening. So this range probably has a very difficult time raising. It's probably going to be mostly playing call fold here. So it looks intimidating to play call fold because you don't want another like a 6 or a club or something to peel off, but I think it's really hard to raise. So I'd probably mostly be playing call fold against what I perceive to be like a very strong betting range. And obviously like an uncapped Big Blind. It helps that the Big Blind's so short. That might allow me to raise more, is the fact that the Big Blind's so short. Initially, I thought like the Big Blind might have, I wasn't paying attention to stack sizes. If the Big Blind had 20 million, I'd be playing more call fold. With the Big Blind only on 7, I might raise like pocket 5s. And like if Havner was keen enough to flat 8-6 suited and nail his flop, maybe 2-bet sometimes with that if it's hearts or something. But like like it's only Jack 9. It's fucking. I mean, like I understand betting for protection, but like that's just I don't know. I don't know if that's gonna. And we call folded. I mean, we could have like flush draws there. Maybe we have like straight draws there. Ooh. I'm trying to think about what we call fold. He probably call folds 9X. But to be honest, like I probably like honestly, if I'm Havner here, I actually fold. So first of all, like this calling range I think should be strong pre-flop. I don't think it should be very weak. This player's really short. This player's got 20 bigs. Like I think our calling range here is very, very strong. And then like when this is a flop and he bets half pot here, if we happen to have 9-10 suited, which I don't think we should necessarily have, but if we happen to have 9-10 suited, I would just fold. If I had 9-10 of spades, I just muck now, which is kind of annoying. Stacks aren't that short. I mean, I don't know if I'm like a huge fan of min raising. I don't think it's bad though. So I think like this player min raising makes more sense. This player has 30 big blinds ish, opening into chip leaders. I think this makes more sense. But I think that the chip leaders like this player opening into the big blind, I think should be. I would have probably opened to like 2.3 or so. 40 effective with the big blind, like buttonless and super short. So I'm going to be 3-betting here with like mostly relatively strong range. This player's obviously very short. Havner's short also. Yeah, so I think like when I'm evaluating 3-betting in this situation, it's going to be mostly like suited ace highs. Yeah, Yargo is doing a live stream for sure. I know Yargo's doing one. I would need permission, I think, from the powers that be to stream something like this, so that's why I'm doing it on a private basis, doing it for my crew. So yeah, so here in this situation, I would have jammed ace king offsuit. It's a good question. What would I have done with ace king offsuit? I would have shipped it probably. My 3-bet calling component would be like mostly paired. Probably, like definitely kings plus. Like I'd definitely 3-bet kings and aces, and then like maybe queens plus. Although I'd probably flat with queens because I'd expect the field to be weak. I mean, like there's just so many players, and I don't know if Havner knows these players very well. Like this player knows what they're doing. I recognize his screen name as well. But I mean, like it's easy to say I recognize this, but there's so many people that do this. I don't know if I recognize this one specifically. But like even if I did recognize them, I still like would hard lock the population into making like my opponents into making really bad ICM decisions. And so like I'd probably be playing like a very polarized 3-bet strategy in position, and I'd probably be 3-betting like aces and kings and suited ace highs as bluffs, and then flatting like everything else, and then shoving ace king offsuit. So that would be like kind of the 3-bet strategy I would deploy. And then my post-flop strategy would basically, mostly I would be using a strategy that, like when I have my value bets, like my value bets would be pocket aces. And then when I, so this, I think this sucks. I think that's like really tragic. I think that's a 0% play. And that's kind of what I mean. Like I do think that this player is like probably a very competent, like winning professional. But like that 3-bet sucks, like really bad. So I don't think you're ever going to see this in a model. Like I think like pocket nines is never going to make sense as like a 3-bet bluff at 30 big blinds effective with the cutoff. And if he's 3-bet calling, that's even worse. So I think this is like just atrocious, basically. But at the same time, I think that you can basically like hard lock your opponents into doing stuff like this because most people haven't watched the BBZ ICM course, so they don't know what they're doing, and as a result, like they make these horrible, like these just really horrific ICM adjusted strategies. Like his play makes no sense as a bluff, and his play makes no sense as a value bet. And even like trying to say like, oh, I'm value betting so that like I get called by worse, and then if you 4-bets, like I have to deal with it, like doesn't work because like inflating the pot with like nines against like Jack 10 suited, it's not really that good either. So like there's really no world where that play makes sense. But you can assume that people will make that play, and that's why I would flat queens, as myself, because I know that people are going to 3-bet call just in really dumb ways. Is the play with 8s fine? No, I'd fold. I would play like a very low frequency call strategy with like a very low frequency call strategy in general. I would view this situation as mostly being like not exclusively, but mostly converging on like 4-bet or fold strat. And 4-betting 8s like doesn't make that much sense, and calling with it's not going to work, so I just fold. And like before, people like some people who don't really know how things work would get like pretty critical, and they'd say like, well, how are you defending your range? I'm not. I'm opening tight as fuck. Like, what are you talking about? Like, look, this guy's the chip leader. This guy's in second. So my opening range here is tight as hell. So considering I've got such a tight opening range, I don't have to defend 8s. Like 8s is not like some mandatory VPIP to like defend my opening strategy. My strategy is tight as fuck to begin with. So I can fold 8s, and he can't really exploit that. So it's not easy to exploit that. How about that? I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's not easy. Yeah, I mean, like as far as students saying like I've seen people do like unorthodox stuff, and it's like there's unorthodox and then there's just like incineration. And I think that was like the latter. I think it was incineration. Super painful when you 3-bet calls 9s and you have ace-5 suited, no doubt. But fortunately, like you don't have that much ace-5 suited, so it's okay. So I think that Havener's got to play call fold here. I don't think that there's any raising. I don't think it'll work with anything. He can try to shove, but he can't like not all-in size it with anything. So check range on flop is probably the play. It's a very dynamic board. He's gonna have like too much across like the board, and betting is just not gonna work. He's got too many ways to try to pressure your medium strength equity. I just wouldn't bet any hands on the flop. Board's just not gonna work in my opinion. So I check range. I check aces. I check 10s. I check king queen. I check 8-7. I check all of it. I check 10-5. A lot of checked ranges Havener. It's not going to be a high frequency bet situation on the turn. It's going to be a low frequency bet. There's going to be a betting range, but it's going to be modest. It's very difficult for this player to bet into like a polarized range that's got mostly queen X in it because you've got a queen a lot. So this range is probably stripped of king queen. So this range is stripped of the nuts. So it's got to be, even though it covers, it's got to be kind of careful. It can also just like kind of just like side call it off with all of his queen X, considering a stack to pot ratio. But it still has to think about the fact that it's got a 0% weighting on king queen. Check call is like a decent range, decent strategy for this range to play. So I like the flop check with 9-10. I like the turn check call with 9-10. I think that's fine. And then I like the river check. So my guy played it well. Don't think this player should have like too high of a betting strategy on the turn with 7-8, but I don't think it's bad. So I think that this player's play was fine also. Let me just go back. What happened on the flop? This player flopped a fucking straight, right? What happened on the flop? Okay, so yeah, so check call flop by my guy. I think that's good. Let me just go back. So check call flop against half pot. I think standard. I don't think check raise is the play, so I think check call is good. I don't think this play is good. I don't think this play is very good. This play is very good. I think this is mostly turn check here. This play range has too much queen X. I'm not saying this is like 0% play, but like you don't have king queen, so like and you have so many queens. Like I just don't think this is like really necessary. I'm not saying it's like gonna show up at 0 in a solver, but I just think it's like very modest weight. All right, guys, welcome to BBZ Poker. I am BBZ, and we have got 2 bundles on the BBZPoker.com website. We have got the apestyles bundle, and we've got mine. Now, our bundles are designed to deliver incredible value and be accessible to anyone who wants to learn and improve at poker. What we thought was that a lot of the really high-level content was expensive or requires an ongoing commitment. These 2 bundles are very accessible at the $99 price point, contain a lot of content, and can definitely help anyone, whether they're just getting started or if they're a very sophisticated player, to improve. And we definitely appreciate you guys taking the time to check those out. Thank you very much. Going back to the 8s and 9s hand, why don't we have ace-5 suited much? Because there's only 4 combos. That's all. That's all I meant. There's only 4 combos. So you're going to have, like, something else more often. You're going to have, like, king-jack offsuit, which is just going to fold. That's 12, right? So, like, yeah, when you get ace-5 suited and you send it, and then the guy's got, like, 9s, and you're like, oh my god, you fucking idiot, and he calls. Like, it sucks, but, like, you don't have ace-5 suited that much, so. And the calling strategy is just, like, not going to work, I don't think. As the counter with 8s, I don't think it works. Especially as we, like, linearly expand our opponent's ranges, like, as we move their value betting ranges down, and we allow them, and we, like, have them including more hands like pocket 9s or 10s or jacks or whatever in their 3-bet strategy. As we, like, linearly move the progression down, calling gets worse and worse and worse. So, like, calling is a very effective counter strategy against polarized ranges because they have either the nuts or 7-2 offsuit. So, like, if they have 7-2 offsuit, you smash them. So in that world, like, things are going pretty good. And then if they have the nuts, like, you're screwed, so you can't raise, right? So, like, calling is, like, the counter. But as they move to, like, a more linear construction, calling gets worse and worse. So we already see into, like, polarized 3-bet strategies, which is, like, if you actually look at any kind of ICM adjusted work, for the most part, like, the counter strategy is, like, very 4-bet heavy and, like, very call light. And as we linearly as we shift away from what should be happening, which is what I'm doing is I'm polarizing my 3-bet strategy to, like, aces, kings, and ace-5 suited. As we move away from that construction, which is appropriate, to a less appropriate linear construction, which is, like, aces, kings, queens, jacks, 10s, 9s, which is what this player did, thanks for your money, and into, like, king, queen suited, queen, jack suited. As we move into that type of a construction, calling is deteriorating massively. And so the call with 8s gets worse when your opponent's 3-betting with 9s. And even though it feels worse, like, the 4-bet actually got better with ace-5 suited. I know that's, like, the 4-bet got worse too, and you should just fold. Actually, like, if he's going to 3-bet that far down and just call it off, you have to just fold a lot. And you actually shouldn't be 4-bet bluffing as much. And you'll just end up 4-betting for value, and, like, kind of he'll own himself by stacking off so wide and essentially, like, conceding all this ICM EV to all these other players. And so, like, essentially by 3-bet calling 9s, he just forces you into folding. But, like, your strategy doesn't move towards calling. It moves actually towards 4-betting and just, like, 4-betting with the nuts. So, like, if you lock some shitty strategy like what this player used. This is going to go on YouTube too, so I apologize. Thanks for your money. Like, I'm not trying to pick on you. I'm just talking about the strategy. Just go to bbzpoker.com and get the ICM course, and that way people don't have to make YouTube videos criticizing your play anymore. Anybody think that's what he's going to do after I talk this much shit about him? All right. So I like this player using mostly a raising strategy here with this distribution. This player covering the big blind. Probably going to be, like, relatively high frequency, small bet. Don't mind flop check, though. Don't like big bets. Pretty polarizing equity. This player still has lots of hands that are worth, like, basically nothing. Like jack 10, queen jack, queen 10. So just to clean that equity out, like, betting really small can be quite effective. This player has a really hard time defending in position here with, like, the hands that might defend if we weren't on a final table. Because those hands don't realize as much equity, and it's more expensive to try to realize equity with really weak hands when they have to fold. Because, like, you can't afford to lose chips ICM adjusted. So I think, like, really small bet can be very effective as out of position here. But I think check is not bad because, again, the equity is quite polarized. Once it goes check-check, I think big bet's more appropriate than small bet. Particularly on a 10, where this player picks up so many draws. So I think, like, 4 million is probably better. This range has a very difficult time 2-betting. Which is another reason to go bigger, because it makes more sense with your value bets. It's very difficult to, like, check back, flop, and raise turn. You have to, like, run into 2-pair with the 10 or something. And even then, like, you can still just call. So this range is mostly playing call fold, so if you've got, like, top of range, it's going to make more sense to go bigger. This could be a very good play. Polarized 3-bet. Makes it difficult for this player. I think this player can do quite a bit of calling, actually, in this situation. This player can also do a lot of 4-betting just because of the odds. There's 7 million in the middle. There's only 12 million left as far as risk goes when you call. So I think you can shove just because of how big the pot is now if you think this player's bluffing enough. This player's got a very wide range, chip leader opening into 2 players. So polarized 3-bet strategy works. I think you definitely want to be having, like, some kind of non-all-in component with, like, aces and kings. And then offsets. Offsets being, like, ace highs, king highs. Probably offsuit ace highs and king highs as opposed to suited ones in that situation. Definitely want to have an aggressive pre-flop shoving strategy as the big blind there. Not too aggressive with these 2 stacks. Going to have a relatively tight bluff catching range pre-flop, so it's not going to look like, you know, a non-final table situation for the big blind there. Lots of this should be going on. Player covering this one. I think this strategy should, again, mostly be dominated by 4-betting. Shouldn't really involve too much 3-betting. Or, sorry, calling. There should be some calling. If you have a hand like queen jack suited here, for example, I just fold. This player doesn't think too loose. Obviously, it could just be running hot, kind of top of distribution, but just seems to be opening, like, way too much into the chip leader. Seems to be opening too much across, like, shorter stacks. 3-betting too linearly. Doesn't seem like he respects ICM enough. It's going to be very expensive long term. This player is, like, pretty much in the most fucked position at the table. got the chip leader here, got the player that's in second here to your direct left. So like chip leader over here, can't open over here. And like short stack, like really short, right? So like you're experiencing tremendous pressure from these two stacks on average. You just have to wait for the distribution to change. It'll change, just be patient. Going to be using low frequency c-bet here, so this might just be a really strong range. I think this player should be using small 2-bet like fairly often. Not really shoving. So if you have a hand that you think about shoving with, I think you just small 2-bet with it. I don't think you want a shoving range here. I think you want the ability to like leverage small 2-bet into the strategy against like that player. I think you want to use high frequency fold because that strategy looks strong as fuck. But I do think like small 2-bet sizings is the counter strategy that you deploy fairly often. I don't think you want to be like jamming tons. Not because like, it does make sense with your value bets, but because it's a great way to bluff and apply pressure that into this player. But this player so far doesn't really seem like they respect ICM enough, so they're probably going to do like have an inflated defend versus check raise strategy. So you can start to predict and start exploiting people like fairly quickly in these types of situations because they start making mistakes that are kind of obvious. This player is probably going to be kind of careful about expanding the opening range too much because this player is too loose. So, like, even though you're the chip leader and you want to open a lot, you've got to be kind of cognizant of the fact that this guy's not going to let you. This player is willing to spew money to these other players. You try to run him over. So he's going to have like against me, he's going to have like a higher EQR. He's going to have like a higher equity realization than he's supposed to have. Because I'm going to use like slightly more polarized strategy in different situations. But he's going to just be absolutely incinerating against these other players. Because when you stack off too light and put in too much money with a weak range, that's going to be the consequences. It's not going to be me owning him though. So like, which I think is like an emotional thing that people get into when they're playing. Is like they get frustrated by like this guy like they start to feel like this guy's not folding and like that's annoying. It's like, well, he's paying all these people by not folding. He has nothing to do with you. You can't like if he's not going to fold, you can't do anything. So you got to take the ego out. Otherwise, you just keep trying to use the same strategy, and he ends up confiscating chips from you. But you know, and you both end up spewing to these people. See, like he's just so active. I'm not saying that this isn't the nuts. Like obviously his strategy's face down, but he's just extraordinarily active in a really unfavorable distribution where he's got like 2-to-1 relative to these two players. This range should be polarized as fuck. This should just be like aces and like ace fives. You know, aces and like maybe kings and then like ace 8 and then suited ace x. There's a lot of money in taking third. That's how tournaments work. It's not all about trying to win. It's Mr. Havner. BBZ affiliated, just trying to get ladders at this point. So I like the strategies of playing, being patient, being very tight, just trying to get ladders. Lots of money, and just trying to like wait for people to spew. Take third. This player can probably still use high frequency bet small sizing here, even though like these ranges are gonna be stronger for flatting preflop. It's not necessarily that much stronger on the ace x block because the player still has a 3-bet strategy. Probably gonna be getting high frequency fold with that flop c-bet, but you're still gonna have a polarized barreling range, and then you're going to check a lot. I wouldn't be barreling here pure. I would give this range like a little bit more credit than that and assume that there's enough ace x in it. That's going to be kind of intimidating. But I would still be, he's definitely stuff to apply pressure. Try to think about like where the top of this flatting range is. It's probably around like ace 8, maybe ace 9. So maybe you want to barrel like hands that have an 8 or 9 in them on the turn as this player. This opening range will be loose enough to have that fill out like a good chunk of the bluffs. 9-6 suited, probably too. I mean, so it's not a bad hand, but it's a little bit on the loose side. Shit, do we get another ladder? No. Fuck. Got excited. All right, let's see what's going on. Let's go. All right. So I know that this is live for you guys, but we're going to do a quick commercial. So, if you're watching this guy who's sticked by us might be just like you. So if you play low to mid stakes and you're, interested in getting better and putting yourself into a position where things might be a little bit different in the future, then jump into the BBZ Discord. This type of shit is super sick. Commercial over. All right. So what did Ike have in that hand? He had Jack 10. Phil unfolded King 8. Sick. Okay, so this player opens, player calls. Gonna be using a high frequency check strategy again. And then when I do bet, it's going to be quite large. Even though we're short, I'm still using a large bet when I do bet. That's too small. I think this bet size sucks. Basically, this player's range has too much equity, I think, and can probably check raise like a little bit too often. I don't think this bet works. So I bet bigger, and I check a lot. You don't have enough interaction with this flop. You do have a tight opening range. That helps, but I still think this bet's just too small. I would mostly not be using a bet size like that. I do think you can do it with like, at this S stack to pot ratio, you can do it with like some top of range traps and have like a more modest range around it. Like you can have like a set of 7s, 4s, and deuces in that range. Try to expand this player's calling range. And like occasionally do something like that, but I think like mostly you don't want to do that. I don't think that this turn involves leading at beyond like, 12% or so, like in this situation. So I do think that there's probably like 15% leading, but I don't think it gets to be very substantial. I think this player needs to use like a pretty aggressive 2-bet strategy in position though, which is kind of uncomfortable. So I think it's kind of cute. Maybe there's more leading than I think because he covers by so much. There's a lot of leading in like kind of, yeah, maybe there's more leading than I think because this player has so many chips. So like he can kind of do what he wants and throw his weight around. Yeah, maybe that's better than I think it is. Yeah, that probably is better than I think it is actually. That might get to be like, like a much more robust play than I think. But then I thought. I don't know, I have to look it up later. So I think this works. Like this range has like tons of equity. It's got a very difficult time defending. This bet should be very efficient, very profitable with bluffs. I like the sizing choice. Still going to use a decent number of barrels. Not going to bet range because we're going to mix. Probably going to size geometrically. 3-ish is probably going to work. 3, a little bit over 3, 3.4, whatever, something around there. Checking is obviously a big part of the strategy. Once this player checks, he's got a lot more like ace highs and shitty pairs, like 7s. So this player can't just fold them all. So this player's gonna have to make some hero calls here, like lots of hero calls here. It's easy for this range to be over bluffing, so I'd be very careful. Like it's you definitely have to have bluffs, but you just want to be careful about which ones you choose. My man's getting short, which is it sucks to be short, but like the fortunate thing about being short like this in this distribution is that I don't think that too many of these people have super sound ICM adjusted strategies, so there might be spewing. So like this player might get undeserved ladders still. People just not paying enough attention to how short he is. Seems likely based on what's been happening so far. Or at least maybe reasonable is a better word for it. Seems reasonable. Seems like it's not an unreasonable assumption to think that that's likely to happen or could happen. I don't think you want to have like a super high frequency calling component here. Pre-flop. Not talking about the flop, but pre-flop. On the flop, there's going to be a lot of calling. Once you get here, there's going to be a lot of calling. But I don't think pre-flop you want to do a bunch of calling. This player's super short, you're short, this player's short. This guy's a chip leader. The commentary team loves the 3-bet with 9s. Yeah, well, they don't know what they're doing either. Don't really care who's doing the commentary. I don't think this really works. I think this looks like it works, but I don't think that there's very many 3-bet shoves for 30 big blinds from the small blind against under the gun. Unless you think this range is like out of whack for some reason. This player seems pretty respectful, so I don't know that I would really think that. Well, I think that the sizing choice is supposed to be smaller. Like there are some hands that really kind of like hate this spot. Like I understand he has pocket 10s sometimes, but like that hand shoves. So this is fine. Like this, like there is a shoving range, just like not most of the range. So like this is fine. There's not really something that's like that call was also fine. So like we got our ladder. We did get our ladder. So we are up to 167. Our man is up to 167. Let's go! I do have a piece of this. I am making money as this tournament plays out. So we'd expect like pretty high frequency shove from the small blind here. It's not going to be 100 though. Let's go, Mr. Havner. Obviously we're going to be jamming a fair amount. There's still going to be some limping in the strategy, but not as much. Mostly because it's very risky. So it's harder to like protect. So normally when we limp, even with like 10 big blinds, we protect the limps with like suited hands like Jack 9 suited or Jack 10 suited or something. And then you limp Jack 10 suited, he shoves, you call. But that strategy doesn't work as well when you're in a situation like this where you don't really want to take any additional risk with Jack 10 suited. You just want to take the fold equity. So it gets harder. Now this player is very short, and these other players have pulled somewhat substantially far away. So like you can limp call a hand like Queen Jack suited or Queen 10 suited, and like I wouldn't like totally hate you for it, but like you gotta be careful about that in a situation like this. I think I probably still use high frequency small turn bet sizing as Hafner, or high frequency flop bet sizing as Hafner, but you gotta be careful about that also because like you don't have ace X at all. So I wouldn't do that into someone who's like really solid because this range is you've subtracted the ace X component once you've limped. So even though like this player doesn't have an ace because he would shove, you subtract it from both of you. So you've got to kind of think about that. This range has like lots of pocket kings and pocket queens in it still. And yeah, I think that like the way that Hafner played the hand was fine, considering like the hand he had. It's king 5 off a shove pre. It's probably like a profitable shove pre, but I don't, and it plays flops badly enough to probably continue to shove pre. But it's not worth so much money that like I'm disappointed that he completed. So I would have probably just shipped it because it doesn't play flops well enough. But I'm not like disappointed to see him call. Okay, this strategy is obviously a thing. Like we clearly have a shoving range here, so 6s is just going to be a jam. 7s is going to be a jam. Queen Jack suited is a jam. Ace Jack's a jam. Like there's a shoving range here, so this is fine. That sucks because we're always like I don't know how. I don't feel like terrible about Queen Jack offsuit. I don't know how good I feel about Queen Jack offsuit though either. So I think it's probably fine though. Like I don't think it's definitely not like horrible. It's just like I don't know. It's like one of the hands that's like, fuck, what am I going to do with this? So, yeah, so I thought he played pretty well from what I saw. Apparently he made a big bluff that worked earlier in the session, which was great. And, yeah, GG, Mr. Hafner. Congrats. It's a big score. $167,000. Satellite in and pick it up. So, new addition to the BBZ Poker Academy. And thanks for hanging out, guys. And I'm actually going to look at that spot. Like the 9s, 8 spot, we're just going to take a quick look at it. I can't do it with poker stars open, so close stars. Just going to look at like a model, for example, button cutoff, because like some commentators said that, and like the commentators have respect and shit, and so this is going to go public. So we're just going to take a quick look at ICM adjusted. This is so let's just look at like were they like 30 bigs? I think so, right? So 30 big blinds. This is like with very modest ICM. So this is 6-handed play, modest ICM, and the reason I say modest ICM is because there's no short stacks. So this is like best case scenario for your 3-bet range, like unless you're the chip leader, unless you cover the opener by like a large margin. So here's 9s, it's pure call, 0% 3-bet. Here's queens, which I said I would flat. I said that I would probably, right? I said I'm flatting queens, and then the guy 3-bet calls 9s, and like potentially some commentators say like it's good or whatever. I don't know. I didn't watch what they said, so I don't know. Maybe they didn't say that, but it came back to me that they might have said that. And so like queens is a flat. Again, this is with like 30 bigs. Everyone's got comparable stacks. Like I just don't think you want to 3-bet a hand like what was being 3-bet. Now maybe I have the stack depths wrong here. I don't know. But this is this seems to me like a reasonable proxy for the situation that was being 3-bet in. And then I also mentioned as the cutoff, probably wanting to use like a strategy geared more towards 4-betting, but especially since there were short stacks at the table. So this is kind of like not quite a fair model, and that's because there aren't enough short stacks in this situation for the cutoff. And so you can see that it's using a very aggressive 4-bet strategy, does not like calling at all, and it's 4-betting 8s, but that's contingent on your opponent not 3-bet calling with 9s, and you have like much more risk here. So I think that this 4-bet would suck, and I think the calling is not good. And you can see that it's folding 9s. So I think that the way that the hand was played is just like not good at all, but by either party. But that's just my opinion. So, all right, and yeah, if this model is appropriate, lots of luck taking the other side. So anyways, we'll call it here. Cheers, guys. Peace. Bye.